Right, next up we have Alexander Girau, CEO and co-founder of Group1, and he's also an Energy Transition Fellow at our Energy Institute here at UT.
Hey everyone, good be invited to speak and be here to share a bit of my entrepreneurial journey, but also a little bit about Group1 and the connection to UT and ultimately the connection to all of you and what we're doing to power the Texas energy economy. So I do from oil to electrons. I have some history in oil and gas space, but I found myself in battery materials. So the subtitle, Texan's path from petrochemicals, new battery revolution, standing on the shores of good enough. So core technologies are a good enough slab, but my background, I'm originally from New Orleans. Hurricane Katrina hit when I was a senior in high school. We relocated to Austin. So half Texan, half Louisianian, so don't hold that against me. But I come from a family of chemical engineers. So energy has been in our blood for a very long time. And this is how I raised money for my first company in New Orleans. All the old oil and gas guys, batteries are just little bags of chemicals. We know batteries, we know chemicals. We know energy, BTU, joule, calorie, it's all the same. We know how to move chemicals. We know how to transform them. It's moving electrons. So this is one of the benefits of being in the oil and gas space is you're able to translate a lot of existing knowledge and know-how. So go into a little bit of my path, but notice there's a lot of students here, and I'm going to key you in a bit because I didn't explain how I got here. So I was doing PhD work at Tulane University and was focusing on nanomaterial processing. And it was a process. It's a platform. You didn't have an application. Initially, the application was gene therapy. Now, the thing is, we had a process that could make kilograms of material, but you only needed micrograms for the application. Wasn't a good fit. However, I was exposed to the life track of entrepreneurship. It's like, wait, I don't have to be a professor, or I don't have to be a researcher in the industry. I could struggle 80 hours a week on my own, my own effort. That sounds great. So instead of finishing PhD, I left and wanted to start a company, but didn't have an application yet. So I did what everybody else in Louisiana or Texas or the Gulf Coast can do easily, get a chemical engineering degree, go and consult. And I got a lot of exposure to large scale, which is very important because in the battery space, it's probably the one field that has the most under-delivered promise. There's always some fantastic battery. Why is it in here? Because they make one single battery work. They don't think of the trillions that will need to be made. And that takes a chemical engineer's mindset. You need to think about scale. You need to live in the future and look backwards so that the materials you choose, the processes you choose, the equipment you choose has line of sight. Otherwise, you're not going to be disruptive. You're just not going to be able to be adopted. So one of the first projects that I'll highlight, two projects that I worked on. One was doing some topsides design on the Shell British TLP platform, and also did some process design work at Kior, which was focusing on advanced biomass refining, but ended up talking to enough people asking, what is a good application, or, we have this technology, what can it do? After talking to over, let's say, 100 VPs, telling them they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, can I have 15 minutes of your time? really came down to, Alex, silicon is actually very important in the battery space. So graphite can store X amount of lithium. Silicon can store 10x, 10 times the lithium. But the problem with silicon is that it expands. So you need to nanosize it and do a whole host of other things to make it battery grade. So anyway, that got me onto my path of where I am now, a battery entrepreneur, CEO. But at that time, circuitous path, spent some time at Y Combinator in Silicon Valley, which is the most well-known startup accelerator, and really learned how to build a hyper-growth company. And ended up scaling Advana to about 50 people, making 10 tons of material a year, and really got understanding of how to engineer and design materials for batteries or an application, but do it in a scale-first approach, really leveraging all the large-scale experiences that I gained and really honing on my chemical engineering roots. So that's an example of some of the material that we developed. We call it ASIFX, and that's our pilot scale mill. It's my last company. And this is a picture of me in one of our labs, and this was my last day as active CEO of Advana. Still on a board and I advise, but that was my first trip into the battery realm and entrepreneurship. So that doesn't take me to UT just yet. This gentleman did. So for those you don't know, this is Professor John Goodenough. He's the rock star in the battery space, Nobel Prize laureate, developed nearly every single relevant cathode material in use in lithium-ion batteries. I actually met him a few years before COVID. Group1 wasn't even an idea. So Group1, which is the company I'm heading now, is based on technology and materials that was developed in Professor Goodenough's lab. And if anybody has a track record for turning battery innovations into reality, it's his lab. And that was one of the things that, of course, everybody grabbed onto, but I really grabbed onto because I was living it, suffering it. I was happy about it. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, you gotta love the highs and lows. But really had a chance to get close to a world-changing technology. So most people don't know, in this crowd, we know the legacy of John Goodenough, Professor Goodenough, but most people don't know that he's a co-inventor of the lithium-ion battery. LCO was the first cathode that he developed. Then lithium manganese oxide. Then lithium iron phosphate, which is in half of all Teslas now. He was engineering out critical minerals decades ago. Now it's the virtue signal of du jour for every investor. But he was thinking about this problem decades ago. So we are standing on the shoulder of a giant. So Group1, we're commercializing material called potassium-ion. This enables potassium-ion batteries. These are critical mineral free, no lithium, no cobalt, no nickel, no copper. They're non-flammable, enables domestic manufacturing and reduces reliance on China, and is useful in many applications that we all touch and love, and I'll go into some of the apps. But what's important is we've actually made 5,000 batteries already. This is not an AI-generated picture, it's real. So after learning how to go through the various iterations of making batteries, my first company, we were able to do it very quickly for this one. And rightfully so, because this is a world-changing innovation. So we have the team and the technology and the know-how to steward it in a fashion it deserves to be stewarded. Oh, and I mentioned that's our lab, and we're based right now in San Marcos. So we're producing 1 ton a year of material. It's enough for 1,000, 2,000 batteries or so, and we've been around since 2021. Top left corner, these are all UT alum, our 3 co-founders. There's Professor Mathriam, Professor Keith Stevenson, postdoc, and both of my co-founders. So we are UT inside and out. But you might be asking, well, Alex, this sounds great, but where am I going to see it? You know what? I'll mention where you'll see it, but first, why does it matter? Well, it's the best combination of performance, safety, and sustainability. So you may have been hearing about sodium-ion, which also was invented in Professor Goodough's lab. That is a response to the world wanting reduced reliance on critical minerals. Unfortunately, sodium-ion has terrible energy density and other performance. It's great for specific applications. But potassium-ion allows you to have all 3 at once, which you typically have to have a trade-off with something. And interestingly, this you don't have to give up. There's 3 main value propositions I want to highlight about potassium and critical mineral free. There's no lithium, no cobalt, no nickel, no copper, no material source from areas of geopolitical unrest. The raw material is potash. It's a fertilizer. It's widely available across North America. So when you talk about domestic manufacturing, well, this battery, we can make the cathode material here. Graphite's being scaled here. All the carbon people are going to go to the graphite supply chain. Electrolyte's the same. The casing's the same. 18650s, this is the most widely understood battery form factor in the history of batteries. If you make one form factor like this, every customer, every OEM will know, oh, I know how to benchmark that. Okay, that's a real battery. All right, so we can extrapolate. So you need to get to this form factor as quickly as possible. Besides its drop-in nature, which is what I was describing, there's some interesting physics about the potassium ion that actually makes it higher energy and faster charging than lithium. So it's a full-volt cathode, and because potassium is a larger ion, you get higher mobility. That means faster charge, faster discharge, better low-temperature operation. So where are some of the applications? Well, if you look at matching our volume, we're at small volumes now, but really we're able to get exceptional power density. And looking at the Texas landscape and the incredible energy demand that data centers are experiencing because of this AI boom, we're seeing an incredible opportunity to fit into UPS batteries, backup storage, in case any of these data centers, their power supplies go down, and there's a little bit of time in between the generators kick up, you can have your battery, your potassium-ion battery, instantly kick on. Now, of course, there's national security benefits to this, and the military and defense sector has been very gung-ho, but also this has performance that's aligned for EV and hybrid. And of course, stationary storage, but what I think might be the biggest industry we're not seeing yet in the next 10 years is humanoid robots. And we're all seeing things become driverless. Well, Elon already is making an army of these guys. Pretty soon, most companies are going to have an army of these guys. They're going to need batteries. So I initially started the talk with a little bit of how I got into this space and how oil and gas is framed my point of view on how to approach batteries. Then going to Group 1 and John Goodenough in our markets. But I'm happy to talk to any interested parties, but also founders or emerging entrepreneurs. You know, I'm very happy to have a word with you. And, you know, being an entrepreneur is a great opportunity. It's a calling. It's not for everybody. But if you want to take the jump, it's well worth it. Happy to take any questions anybody might have. No questions?
So where do you see your first commercial application and opportunity?
Yeah, so I've kind of highlighted, but what we see is we match the performance benefit because we're not competing on cost yet. We're not at scale. This does have economies of scale. So we have to compete on performance, safety, fast charge, fast discharge, backup batteries, and we're thinking data centers is the biggest driver of power demand in Texas right now. But of course, any essential infrastructure needs backup power.
So, Alex, in your company, how do you think of things like joint development agreements with large established companies? Do you welcome them? Do you shy away from them? How do you address that in a startup company like yours?
Yeah. At Y Combinator, they guide their startups to stay away. Stay away from long, drawn-out negotiations. Stay out of, you're going to die. You're going to run out of money by the time you get to the right person who can say yes or no. But you can't do this by yourself. It takes a community. So there is a place for JDAs, and there is a place for partnerships, but if you want to go big fast, you need to vertically integrate as much as possible and raise capital to do it and then execute. Once you have gas in a tank, then you can start going through technology scouting groups and get to hopefully their CTO or the deciding party. We also have some IP license from Sharp. That deal took 18 months. Now, the Japanese, they've got to get okays from 5 different people to just use the restroom. But still, that's an example. Startups, they're not made to play the big company game.
Oh, sorry, got distracted. Do we have any other questions? All right. Thanks so much, Alex.
Fantastic.